S chosen one, stop scrolling. Do you feel it? That weight in your spirit, that pull in your chest. It's not random. Heaven has silenced the noise around you so that this exact moment could reach your ears. Don't overlook it. This word is the fuel you need for the season you're stepping into. You've questioned the delays, the closed doors, the friendships that faded, the nights you felt invisible. But it wasn't rejection, it was redirection. The stage had to be cleared so you would hear God's whisper without distraction. Just like a theater before the show begins, the silence wasn't emptiness. It was expectancy. Think of the bow before it fires the arrow. To onlookers, the arrow looks pulled back, trapped, even regressing. But the archer knows. The tension is only preparation for a farther launch. That's you. The backward pull was not punishment, it was positioning. Heaven's hand is steady, and you are the arrow. Even Elon Musk understands this truth. The world mocked him when he was pulled back. Tesla laughed at. SpaceX rockets exploding, ideas dismissed as impossible. But the pressure was preparation. Now, those same ideas carry nations into a new future. Musk sees missions beyond this world, but God sees yours, the assignment no one else can fulfill. Let's name the lady who lived there Miriam. She fasted, prayed, and had faith. However, years passed with no apparent alteration. In reality, she was in a heavenly waiting room, despite the whispers that maybe God had forgotten her. When the time came, the response not only saved her life, but also served as a testament that freed hundreds of others. Heaven's pause before a symphony was Miriam's season of stillness. According to what is disclosed in the book of Proverbs, chapter 3, verse 5, you are also in that pause, and the music is about to start. Put all of your faith in the Lord and don't rely on your own knowledge, which is your anchor right now. Even though you may not comprehend the reason for the extended wait, Heaven's time is perfect. The artist is not done, even if you may not see the whole image. The link that connects where you are and where God is taking you is painting faith. Imagine yourself as an underground seed that is concealed, invisible, and covered with dirt. It seems to the inexperienced to be a burial. However, burial is the end, and planting is the way to paradise. The first step is planting. Your secret season felt so heavy because of this, because you weren't being laid to rest. A bigger blossom is being planted in you. This must be heard clearly. You're not in the rear. You're not running late. We don't forget you. It's the complete opposite. According to Heaven's calendar, you were exactly on time. In reality, what seemed to be quiet was planning. For you to be prepared, for your soul to be open, for your ears to finally hear, God waited for this very time. As this message settles in, I implore you, chosen one, to act with trust. Please take a time to reply if this speaks to you spiritually and you believe that this message was conveyed to you. Like this message, subscribe so you don't miss what heaven delivers next, and share it with someone who needs to know they are not forgotten. This is not a coincidence. Therefore, write the number 777 in the comment section as a prophetic gesture announcing, I step into divine completion. This is the result of divine intervention. You are now in heaven's pause, and the sound of a breakthrough is approaching. Don't hate the silence. The pause is not a kind of discipline. Type amen to embrace the angel's blessings. Show your support by giving super thanks up to $20. It serves as defense. Heaven slows you down to bring you into alignment rather than to delay you. You would have entered doors that were not intended for you if you had hurried on in your own time. However, the doors that open today will be more than simply opportunities because of divine alignment. They'll be tasks. Imagine clay in a potter's hands. Sometimes the potter pushes down as the wheel spins, changing what seems to be finished. The clay is not being rejected by the pressure. The potter's perception of something larger inside, it is shown by the pressure. God is now accomplishing it with you, selected one. Reshaping is nothing to be afraid of. Don't be afraid of the quiet. Don't be afraid of the pause. Every delay has been purposefully written down, and every second has been scheduled. And nothing and no one will be able to stop you when heaven says, now. The silence is almost gone. It will soon be released. Be prepared. You are unique. Your whole existence has been inscribed with that reality. There's always something about you that did not quite fit in, even before you took your first breath, while others blended in with the throng. You sensed it in friendships, in school, and in the decisions you made in comparison to others around you. That difference harmed you sometimes. It caused you to question if you were flawed. Maybe you were lacking something that everyone else seemed to have, yet you were always there. Someone marked you. It's common to misunderstand separation. People interpret it as a sign of rejection, exile, or loneliness. However, separation is consecration in God's sight. It is the preparation of vessels that will one day be a source of honor. Priests in the past were unable to utilize everyday objects for sacred worship, such as lights and bowls. Consecrated, the clothing were reserved only for the temple. Your life has also been designated as sacred territory. Type Amen to embrace the angel's blessings. Show your support by giving super thanks up to $20. Imagine David's brothers watching as oil was poured on his head. He wasn't the most apparent option. He wasn't even given permission to enter the room. However, heaven declared that this unnoticed shepherd kid was indeed a king in disguise when Samuel raised the horn of oil. Your estrangement has always been that way. Heavenly recognition, not rejection. The second letter to Timothy contains this information. Verse 21 of chapter 2. Anyone may be a vessel for honorable usage, set aside as holy, helpful to the master, and ready for every good deed if they purge themselves of everything dishonorable. You've carried around the idea that you were unique. You were sometimes made fun of for it. At other times, it made you want to turn out your own light so that no one would notice. In actuality, however, light was never intended to blend in. It was intended to jar the shadows. Your calling is shown by your separation. I want you to keep this in mind. There was no waste of the woods. Consider the occasions when you were misinterpreted, the moments when you were by yourself. Doors were closed on you at those times. You were being shaped into your destiny by those seasons. Heaven used every nay you receive from the outside world to keep you open to the yes that really counts. Think about the life of Joseph, who was wrongly convicted, sold by his brothers, and imprisoned by human standards. It was disaster after tragedy. However, each period of seclusion shaped a leader who would eventually prevent hunger in other countries. He was deprived of his coat. They slandered his name. His calling could not be stolen, but his freedom was seized. Joseph was unique, even in the dungeon. It's the same with you. Your destiny was not diminished by what was taken away from you. You are not disqualified by the treachery, the silence, or the abandonment. You were marked by them. You were split apart by them. You're not like everyone else. You have been selected. Being unique isn't always glamorous. However, there are moments when it seems like you're standing in a deserted field, wondering whether it will ever rain. However, that's when you discover how to hear heaven the best. The voice of God is drowned out by crowds. The noise is dulled by separation. Your silent moments of surrender, your tears in the dark, and your prayers in lonely places all have such weight because of this. Heaven heard. Heaven recalled. Heaven is still reacting. Type Amen to embrace the angel's blessings. Show your support by giving super thanks up to $20. The Imahin lamp is concealed by a fabric. Although it doesn't radiate outward, the flame within burns the same. The brightness is shocking when the covering is eventually removed, gleaming suddenly through the gloom. That's your life. You were hidden for a while, but the moment to reveal yourself is almost here. For the revealing, the separation has served as training. Thus, let this to really affect you. You are divinely different. You are made to take it easy. You are made to move mountains with faith, to change atmospheres, and to carry presence. Like the priest who carried the ark over the Jordan, you are unique because of the oil on your life, not so that you may brag, but so that you can serve. You have been selected to bring something sacred where others cannot. The reasons for your split won't always be clear to you, but the fruit will soon be seen. You'll know it was worthwhile when the oil starts to flow, when your calling becomes clear, and when your mission emerges like the sun rising after the longest night. The cost of being set aside was the loneliness, the tears, and the struggles. Selected one. Never again let your differences get in the way. It is God's fingerprint on your fate. Silent tears, hidden buts. The majority of people never witnessed these parts of your narrative. But heaven kept a record of everything. God observed the weight on your chest at night, while others saw just the mask you wore during the day. When you smiled, people assumed you were powerful. Every tear that silently fell into your pillow was tallied by heaven. You questioned if the conflicts indicated your weakness. You pondered if your quiet indicated that you had been left behind. But pay careful attention. Your authority was honed in on the very challenges you concealed. The crushing that yields the oil for the anointing is the identical crushing that you experienced. You would never be able to wear the mantle that now rests upon you without those unseen struggles. Imagine Hannah sobbing in the temple, misinterpreted even by the priest, who believed she was intoxicated. Samuel, the prophet who would anoint kings, was created as a result of her secret prayer, which was birthed out of suffering. Her sorrow was all that the world saw. However, God saw her womb as a conduit for fate. Heaven has seen your tears as such, not as a waste of water. But seeds that were intended to bear fruit were secretly watered. The book of Psalms, chapter 56, verse 8, tells us that God keeps note of all my troubles. All of my tears have been gathered in your bottle. Every one of them has been noted in your book, and your suffering has been chronicled. God holds your tears in high regard. Not a single wrestling night escaped his notice. Every silent cries have been transformed by him into a portion of your testimony. Because of this, your words have weight when you speak. You were honed by pain. You were schooled by silence. You were stronger as a result of struggles. Suppose there is a diamond under the ground. It remains hidden for years behind layers of darkness and pressure. However, when it is uncovered, it grows more bright the more pressure is applied. That gem is you. You are not destroyed by the darkness. It shaped your genius. This has to be heard. You managed to withstand the treachery, the rejection you had to face, the nights you feared you wouldn't survive. Those were not indications of desertion. They were signs of a calling too great for the shoulders of the average person. You were chosen by hand to bear what others could not. The stillness is now beginning to crack. Through you, what was previously concealed will become the very platform on which God's glory is shown. How did you survive? Others will ask, and your response will be straightforward. Because I was seldom alone myself. So, this is my current invitation to you. Write these words in the comments section. Still going strong. Why this particular phrase? As it's more than just a sentence. It's a banner. It affirms that despite all that has attempted to shatter you, you are strong, resilient, and upright. It is a declaration of triumph over all unseen conflicts. You're doing more than simply motivating yourself when you write it. By doing this, you're giving everyone else who scrolls by courage. By writing it, someone who may be about to give up, you make prophecies out of your suffering. What formerly burdened you is transformed into a witness that uplifts others. Heaven grins as you announce, still standing firm. For you are just what grace has created you to be. Never again think that your quiet battles were in vain, chosen one. They were heaven's language, molding you for the future. You are not ashamed of your scars. They are signatures. They demonstrate that you are not consumed despite walking through fire. They demonstrate that you survived storms without drowning. And sometimes those scars will speak louder than any sermon. Each scar screams, I made it. Enter. People would marvel how you managed to continue after seeing your life. They will anticipate resentment, but discover optimism. They'll anticipate hopelessness, but look for brightness. The proof that God's hand was always with you is that paradox. Consider a lightning-stricken tree. It seems to be demolished at first look. However, new branches eventually emerge from the injured stem. Although the scar persists, it becomes a part of the survival narrative. That tree is you. You are not killed by what hit you. It demonstrated your ability to develop once again. Don't be embarrassed by your tale. Don't keep quiet about what God has saved. He will bring forth life in the same spot where you were shattered. Be mindful of this when you remark, still standing strong. It goes beyond where you are right now. To reach here, you had to traverse almost every valley. It's about the fortitude developed in the dark. It has to do with the unwavering faith. You made it through, by assignment, not by chance. Additionally, you are now prepared for what happens next since you are still standing. You never carry an average load. From an early age, you felt as if you were. The fact is that you often question yourself. Why me? Why must I carry so much when others seem so free? Divine tasks can only be carried by strong shoulders. It was never arbitrary. Heaven recognized your ability and trusted you with every duty, every adversity, and every burden that seemed unjust. What you went through may have caused others to disintegrate. However, you were made to endure stress. In the same way that bridges are put through rigorous testing with large loads before being made public. Your life was put to the test beforehand, demonstrating your ability to bear what others could not. Consider Moses. From the beginning, he was not granted an easy route. Being concealed in a basket on the Nile, while other kids died, meant that he had to bear the burden of survival. Growing up in the Pharaoh's palace as a Hebrew, he had to bear the burden of his identity. Later on, he had to bear the responsibility of guiding a whole country through the wilderness. The weight grew rather than decreased. The grace that kept him going, however, did the same. You have been maintained by that same grace. In chapter 10, verse 13 of his epistle to the Corinthians, the apostle reminds us, God is dependable. He won't allow you to be seduced beyond your breaking point. However, he will also provide you a route out so you can resist temptation. And the evidence of God's faithfulness is your perseverance. You found strength you didn't know you possessed, even if there were moments when you felt you would shatter. Neither pride nor determination gave rise to this strength. When the weight threatened to crush you, it was granted a magical tenacity. Think of a tree that has been stooped by the snow. Initially, it seems that the branches will break. However, the snow melts and the tree regains its original height when spring approaches. More powerful than before. It was not destroyed by the weight. It set it up for further expansion. That is precisely what has been taking on inside you. There were times when you were responsible for things that weren't even yours. Financial difficulties, family responsibilities, and other people's suffering. You took it all in. You were relied upon. Sometimes you were the quiet support system for buildings that would have fallen apart without you, and you didn't even realize it. You were exhausted, but it also gave you insight into your design. You are a weight bearer by nature. However, perseverance should not be equated with punishment. There was no evidence of God's absence in what you held. It demonstrated his confidence. Heaven knew you wouldn't allow the weight to break your faith, so they trusted you to bear. Light loads were not selected for you. Heavy grandeur is what you were selected for. Imagine a crown. It's lovely. Yes, but it weighs a lot too. Paper crowns are not worn by kings and queens. They are adorned with gems and gold crowns. They are reminded of their responsibilities by that weight pressing down on their heads. Similarly, the invisible crown on your life has urged you to avoid harm, but to remind you that leadership is your calling. Even today, you are a different person because of the recollection of what you carried. You have authority, depth, and gravity as you walk. Even if they may talk lightly, those who have never held weight don't have much to say. But you possess strength honed by perseverance, compassion born of suffering, and knowledge forged in fire. The process by which God selects his vessels is mysterious. The carefree, the untried, and the unburdened are seldom his choices. Rather, he selects those who have experienced hardship because their wounds provide them credibility. Not because you requested the weight, but rather because you've shown your faithfulness. You have been selected. The beauty is right here. Your life will be the solution, and what previously seemed intolerable will become the same testimony that frees others when they say, "It's too much. I can't go on." Even while under crushing weights, you will be a live example of that. When clad with heavenly power, the human soul is unbreakable. Therefore, never belittle the burden you bore. Never belittle the difficulties you faced, since they helped to mold you into the person you are today. A live reminder that difficulty is the source of strength, a bearer of honor, and a vessel of perseverance. And keep in mind that what previously brought you down will eventually bring you high. The witness that will lift you up is the same weight that weighed you down. It was born by you. You shine today because you made it through it. Darkness is tear up by your light. You've seen it. The atmosphere changes as you enter a room. There are many that embrace you, feeling calm and comforted by your presence. Others shudder, offended by your mere presence. That is hardly a coincidence, even if you did nothing wrong. Spiritual reality is what it is. Darkness has always been startled by light. In a cave, a lone flame demands attention. It doesn't have to yell. It just glows. Shadows are unable to dispute it either. You are that person, an unquenchable flame. Even when the wind tries to blow you away from your youth, you brought something unique with you. Darkness noticed. The assault arrived early because of this. The accusations, the bullying, the rejection. They were never arbitrary. They were an effort by hell to stifle a voice that would interfere with its schemes. However, each assault simply made the reality more apparent. Darkness is afraid of the light that you bring. The ancient lines found in John's Gospel, chapter 1, verse 5, serve as a reminder that light shines in the dark and that darkness cannot defeat it. You must be well aware of this. The opponent is disturbed by your very presence. Hell trembles because you haven't given up, even while you question if you are doing enough. Your breath is a weapon. Your prayers pierce the darkness like arrows. Your devotion is like a hammer severing invisible bonds. Let me share a tale with you. A young guy called Elias used to be perplexed by the fact that people appear to have different opinions about him. Some would be drawn to him and find solace in his proximity. Others would attempt to exclude him, talk, or scowl at him. Elias became aware of the situation one evening while praying. There was fire in his soul. Those who sought warmth were drawn to that fire, and those who sought cover were revealed. He stopped wondering, why me, after that, and started to bravely walk in his light. Like Elias, you have to realize that your uniqueness is your advantage. Now, take a time to think. Imagine a towering lighthouse perched on the rim of a stormy beach. Ships are guided to safety by its beam, which penetrates fog. It's not the lighthouse for itself. For others, it sparkles. But someone has to keep it up. Without maintenance, the light might go out and ships would disappear. Someone has to make sure the flame is fed, the glass is polished, and the building is sturdy. Likewise, this message serves as a beacon of hope for many. It glows to remind lost souls that they are not forgotten, they are called, and they are chosen. However, this activity needs assistance in order to continue shining, just like a lighthouse requires oil to remain lit. You may share it with someone who could be facing their own storm by just pressing like to tell them, I hear this, and I receive it. If these words have resonated with you, and this light has helped you navigate your path, you can do so. Because occasionally a soul might return home with only one spark. To keep in touch and never miss what heaven releases here, you may sign up to get every new word as it becomes available. Additionally, you may contribute by pouring oil to this lamp, which will assist the flame burn brighter and extend farther if you ever feel that there is absolutely no pressure. As an act of love, not as a condition, never that, so that those who are lost might also find a way. Even if you are unable to donate, know that your prayers, involvement, and presence here are also fueling the fire. Every time you share with someone who is in pain and listen to them with an open heart, you are bringing light to areas you may not otherwise see. Selected one, never undervalue the influence of your words of encouragement. Striking a match in the dark is analogous to this. It's like opening a window to let sunshine in when you pray for someone. Additionally, by choosing to donate, share, or subscribe to this work, you are contributing to the creation of a blaze that pulls innumerable lives from the depths of sorrow. It was never intended for you to conceal your light. Don't back down because it makes other people uncomfortable. Don't try to squeeze yourself into areas that weren't meant for you. Instead, take a position like that lighthouse, blazing brightly and shamelessly while illuminating others with your radiance. Additionally, keep in mind that the shadow becomes smaller the stronger the light. You are the evidence that evil cannot prevail. Allow this truth to reverberate throughout you. Your light's every flicker is a hopeful promise. Someone may be led home by even the slightest illumination. Continue to shine. Your light is more than simply a means of survival. For many, it is salvation. You cannot disregard the warning. That's the point of this moment. To alert you, not to fear you. Because distraction has repercussions and delays have costs. Deep down, you already know it. Something feels uneasy every time you put off what God has placed in your heart. It's similar like having a song inside of you, but not wanting to sing it. More weight is carried by the stillness than by the sound. You've had a feeling. You felt the pull of heaven. Doors open. However, you pause. Opportunities beckon, but you wonder whether you're prepared. Fear responds to a subtle prod in your soul that says, move. Not quite yet. Selected one. Pay close attention to this. The very future God has planned for you might be lost if you hesitate at the wrong time. Imagine Israel in front of the promised land. With the help of fire and manna, they had made it across the desert and the Red Sea. There was the field brimming with honey and milk. When God replied, go. However, they hesitated because they were terrified of giants. An 11-day voyage became 40 years of wandering because of that reluctance. It was because compliance was delayed, not because the commitment had been broken. In Deuteronomy 30 verses 20 to 21, heaven declares, I have set before you life and death, blessings and curses. Make the decision to live now so that you and your kids can survive. No, it is your current option. Obedience or hesitancy, life or delay. Although it may not seem to be a battlefield, it is one of the most significant conflicts you will ever encounter on a spiritual level. The conflict between acting and knowing. Envision a train arriving at the station. For a minute, its doors slip open. There are chairs ready inside. There is room for you. However, if you stay too long, the doors will not remain open forever. The train continues on after the opportunity has passed. That is the nature of heavenly moments. They arrive by grace. However, they also need a reaction. You may have replied, I'll wait until I feel stronger. However, strength usually develops after you take a step rather than before. Or maybe you've thought, I'll obey when life calms down. However, life seldom does so. Chaos is brought under control by obedience. Failing is not dangerous. The temperature is below freezing. Jonah was aware of this. He deferred, went in the wrong way, boarded a ship, and ended himself in the belly of a huge fish after clearly hearing God's command. Go to Nineveh. His mission was not erased by delay. It merely made things more difficult. He was still utilized by God. However, the detour was expensive. This isn't a coincidence. This is a heavenly interruption. Heaven stops your day, your thoughts, and your scroll to whisper. Don't wait for another season. Don't put off doing anything else. Selected one. Breathe. Allow this to sink in. You've already lost enough tranquility because of your hesitancy. Additionally, don't allow it take away your mission. I ask you to participate in this little act of faith. Enter the number 811 in the comment section. Why? Since 8 symbolizes fresh beginnings and 11 refers to change. When taken as a whole, 811 becomes a prophetic number. I leave reluctance behind and go on my new beginning. Yes, you are writing more than just numbers when you write it. You're saying that I won't miss my timing. I proceed with what God has planned. Your phone number turns into a key. Both the door of delay and the door of fate are locked. Recall the seed that was sown in the ground. The rainy season may end, and the earth may get harder if it waits to open. However, life emerges as soon as the seed dares to divide. This is your time to sprout, because you are that seed. Though it drains fate in secret, delay seems secure. Although it seems hazardous, obedience leads to rewards. The purpose of the warning is not to frighten you. It is here to keep you from living below the promises made to you. You were not selected to stay in the vicinity. You were selected for fulfillment. And one small step separates almost arriving from arriving. So pay careful attention. Don't disregard this call. Don't wait till tomorrow. Heaven has waited long enough to reveal everything to you. The issue still stands. Will you take action or put it off? You have an option. Love masquerading as haste is the warning. And as soon as you take a step, you'll find that heaven has already made the path clear. Listen up. Obedience isn't a burdensome requirement. It's a doorway. It is a place where power rises like dawn and calm flows like water. You were trapped in circles by delay, but you can get back on track with just one step of trust. Tomorrow is not the time for your future. It is awaiting your affirmative response today. Mercy's last plea. It has weight even if it seems soft, because the options for kindness are few. Its solicitations are urgent, yet its love is boundless. You have been covered by God's grace in ways you were unaware of. While the repercussions ought to have been more severe, it protected you. When choices might have devastated you, it kept you safe. Even without his name on your lips, it carried you. Consider the number of nights you were saved. No mishaps. Partnerships that terminated before they completely consumed you. Doors that shut despite your pleas for them to remain open. It seemed like a defeat at the moment. You discovered later that it was really mercy disguised. Not this way, not this person, not this path, said heaven. Forgiveness is just one aspect of mercy. It has to do with rerouting. Chapter 3:22, 23 of the Book of Lamentations tells us that because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed because his compassions are always new and great. Oh, every sunrise you have seen has been a renewal of mercy, and every opportunity you have to try again is an act of heaven's mercy. Mercy won't let you leave, which is why you are still here. However, there is another reality to keep in mind. Mercy beckons. However, it doesn't coerce. It knocks while standing at the door. However, the handle is in your favor. You won't be dragged by God. You're invited. This is the reason this call seems so burdensome at the moment. Because there is a limit to the window of pity. Repeated rejection eventually hardens the heart. Consider Pharaoh. One pandemic followed another, but his heart didn't move till his opportunity eventually passed him by. They had shown mercy, but the entrance was blocked by insurrection. The purpose of a narrative is to remember and warn, not to frighten. Mercy is both serious and lovely. A picture of a lifeboat in choppy waters is shown. Imagine being pulled under by the waves, exhausted, and stuck in the ocean. A lifeboat then approaches and throws a rope to draw you in. For a while, but not forever, the lifeboat will circle. The storm will finally engulf you if you continue to refuse the rope. That lifeboat is mercy. It gets closer and closer. However, it has to be accepted. Reflect on your own life. There were times when the consequences of your decisions should have crushed you. You managed to survive, nevertheless. On certain evenings, darkness seemed to have the last say. Still, dawn arrived. Somehow it wasn't luck. It was kindness that kept you from being destroyed. Mercy is not a sign of weakness. It is love that restrains strength. Justice says enough, but love hasn't responded yet. Heaven is giving you another day, another opportunity, and another nudge that time is still on your side. Oh, but there's a limit to time. Mercy will not continue to circle the same seas indefinitely. This call is important because of this. It's not a condemnation. It's an invitation. Imagine clay in the hands of potter. This is heaven's voice telling you, I have kept you this far because I still have purpose for you. But do not waste the covering. It is possible to mold, crush, and shape wet clay. However, it must be broken before it can be molded after it solidifies in the incorrect shape. The potter's hand is mercy. While your heart is still soft, apply pressure lightly. If you wait too long, the clay will start to solidify. This instance demonstrates that heaven has not yet turned the page without you, that mercy still calls your name, and that your heart has not yet become insensitive. Mercy is still available to you as long as you are still living. But the longer you ignore the call, the sharper it becomes. You've seen enough to understand the reality. When you were unable to protect yourself, mercy did it for you. It took you out of areas where you didn't belong. It put a stop to charges that ought to have brought you to ruin. You had opportunity after opportunity. It is now awaiting your reply. Mercy's patience is not the same as absence. Delay is not the same as indifference. You have always been protected by mercy. However, kindness also whispers, choose now. End of 2. Because time lost is not the biggest sorrow. It's the lack of feeling. Blindness occurs when the heart stops listening to the cry of kindness. Heaven cautions you against that. It's not because God wants to scare you, but rather because he loves you too much to abandon you. So pay close attention to this. Mercy remains. Calling is still ongoing, still containing what would have destroyed you. However, this is not a call to disregard. It's an answer call. As long as the door is open, when the clay is still pliable, as long as the rope is still out, your adversary is not mercy. You're being saved. However, rescue is only important if you seize it. Blindness is one step away. Many people stand there without even recognizing it. Being blind doesn't happen overnight. Bit by bit, it gradually obscures the heart's sight, turning what was once dazzling into dark and what was once clear into fuzz. Like a boat freed from the dock, the danger is not necessarily in dramatic revolt, but rather in slow drifting. At first, the movement is hardly noticeable. However, if it wanders for long enough, the shoreline vanishes. In the spirit, blindness functions in this way. It wanders rather than leaps. In chapter 3, verse 13 of the book of Hebrews, the apostle issues a warning. Encourage one another every day to prevent the deceitfulness of sin from hardening any of you. Deception does not cause blindness. Each whisper seems innocuous, but when combined, they form a net that conceals the eyes. Just once more, it's not that serious. You can always fix it later. The tragedy is in repeatedly believing the falsehood until the truth becomes hazy, not in hearing it once. Consider Samson. Despite being a Nazirite by birth, he was selected and gifted with unfathomable might. His vision was obscured by compromise. Small transgressions at first, followed by bigger betrayals, until at last his eyes were actually stolen. The external sign of what had already occurred in his heart was physical blindness. We are warning you because you are loved, not because you are lost. Heaven is aware of your proximity to fate. And heaven is aware of how much the devil would love to rob you of your sight, blind you to promises, hide your eyes from possibilities, and cause you to stagger in circles while believing you are still. A picture of a candle burning within a glass lantern is shown. The flame continues to burn even if soot gradually accumulates on the glass, although its brightness decreases. The fire within has not gone out, but soon the flame is hardly visible to those outside. Distraction, recurrent delay, and compromised soot. It blinds people who ought to have been led by your light if it is not cleansed. The little things are where blindness starts. Here is an ignored prayer and a hardened heart. There was a reality that was disregarded because it was uncomfortable. The spirit's eyes lose their sharpness in a pattern rather than all at once. What was once a clear belief quickly turns into hazy memories. Here's the grace, however. You have not yet become blind. The very fact that the flame is still burning serves as a warning. Because heaven is still convinced that you can remove the soot. Raise your eyes once more to see clearly. Imagine a hiker on a mountain trail. The path is obscured by M3s. He could fall down a precipice if he continues to stroll carelessly. However, he is saved if he stops, clears his eyes, and waits for the fog to clear. Being blind is perilous, but being conscious of it is a sign of charity. This message is the pause, the opportunity to dispel the haze before it becomes irreversible. Paul himself was blind at one point while traveling to Damascus. Error clouded the hearts, yet enthusiasm filled the eyes. Truth was invisible to him. Then his sight was restored and scales dropped from his eyes in a blaze of light. Before you go too far, that same kindness is waiting for you to restore your sight rather than condemn you. Blindness does not imply instantaneous darkness. It usually entails trading in clear eyesight for shadows. It entails losing the ability to spot danger when it is around. It entails confusing noise for tranquility and referring to freedom in shackles. Heaven cautions you because of this. You are too near fate to make a mistake now. Selected one. Where has your eyesight diminished, you ask? Where did clarity give way to ambiguity? Where have rumors surpassed conviction in volume? Here's where you should give up, because blindness starts in the heart rather than the sight. Nevertheless, this is the hope. Darkness is weaker than light. The thickest fog may be broken by a single spark. blinded eyes may lose their scales in a single instant of surrender. Sight sharper than ever may be restored with only a whisper of "Yes, Lord." Allow this fact to stabilize you. You're not destined to be blind. You inherit sight. Your eyes may be opened again by the same person who developed them in the womb. However, he challenges you to be watchful, to guard your vision like a jewel, to shield it from the encroaching mist of compromise. Because you were selected to see rather than to stumble, to walk clearly rather than to wander in circles, and to confidently take your vision into the future rather than lose it. The edge of choice has been prepared by heaven. You're standing there now. Fight for your yes, heaven or hell. This is not a neutral season. To be motionless is to make a decision. Delaying is equivalent to responding. Ignorance is decision. There's a crossroads. You may be surprised to learn how important your step is. You have already experienced the tug between what is safe and what is holy, between what is comfortable and what is calling. All selected individuals must arrive at this location, the brink from which you can never return. However, taking a step forward is frightening. Nevertheless, destiny are inscribed here. In chapter 24, verse 15 of the book of Joshua, God's voice thundered, "Decide for yourself who you will serve today. However, my family and I will serve the Lord." Standing at the same edge, Joshua spoke for centuries as well as for himself. He was aware that inaction would affect futures, families, and countries. And you have to understand that your decision has the same consequences. Your choice affects more than just you. It reverberates into lives you may never encounter. Imagine a diver at the brink of a cliff. Deep sea, huge and mysterious, lies below. Solid earth lies behind, comfortable yet constricting. Although the jump is terrifying, freedom can only be discovered in the descent. You're caught between the danger of compliance and the safety of doubt. Maybe you're afraid of failure. However, what if failing isn't as harmful as not attempting at all? Maybe you're afraid to go alone. However, what if angels from heaven have already arrived to capture you? Although the edge seems to be dangerous, it is really the portal to fate. You could hear a lot of voices around you. Fear is pushing you back. Pride claiming you don't have to move. Doubt whispering, "Not yet." But one voice doesn't waver. "I'm calling your name. The moment has come." Oh, you have to see it well. The greatest triumph of hell is not reversing your progress, but rather holding you still at the brink. You lose ground to the opponent as long as you wait. However, heaven fills your way with power the instant you make up your mind, even if you are shaky. This is a big decision. It is the boundary that separates the wilderness from the promised land, the circle from the onward motion, and the wandering from the fate. The edge is hallowed ground in the unseen realm, even if it seems invisible to the outside world. And now, I want you to take a quick yet effective action. Type these words in the comment section. No going back. Why this turmoil? Since it's more than just words. It has been resolved. It indicates that you are unwilling to return to the old, draining areas. It indicates that you won't allow fear to revert you to habits that almost brought you down. No, you have made a personal commitment to not undo what heaven has started. You're talking to more than just yourself when you write it. In addition to fortifying those who read it, you are declaring to all the invisible forces observing, "My decision is sealed. I am moving forward and I will not retreat." When you make your announcement, someone who is about to jump will find the strength to do so. Imagine Ruth poised on the precipice of her choice. She had the option to go back to Moab for safety. Predictable predictability with a single, audacious claim. "I'll be among your folks. My God will be yours." She joined a family that would eventually produce rulers. "There's no going back," she said, and history was altered. The edge is the same for you. And, as history has seen, a single choice made at the brink may change the course of events. So have bravery. Don't be fooled by fear. It's a wall at the edge. It is a door, a beginning rather than an end. And there's a bigger narrative waiting for you on the other side of this choice. And keep in mind that making choices like this is not about being flawless. They have to do with direction. You were never required to jump perfectly by God. Faithfully, He begged you to jump. Obedience is still important even if your voice trembles or your walk falters. Courage, not polish, is what heaven measures. You are shaping your future when you refuse to go back. God and you both agree that your past will not affect your present or future. It's similar to setting ships ablaze on land. Therefore, retreating is not an option. All you can do is sail toward promise. Hesitancy is what the adversary feeds on. But when you commit, he shudders. Because heaven provides resources to support your decision once your soul makes up its mind. Angels line up. The roads are clean. Your affirmation opened the door to supernatural assistance, making the seemingly impossible possible. Thus, don't be afraid of the edge. Take a big step. Heaven is telling you to move when you make a jump. The chosen one's ascent trembles the invisible world, although it is not spectacular to the naked sight. Sometimes it starts with a gentle yes that reverberates louder than any storm, rather than with thunder. Heaven changes the instant you accept your crown. All of creation leans forward to see what you will become as the scroll of destiny bearing your name starts to unfurl. You have faced delays, traveled through valleys, borne weights, and suffered quiet. It was all shaping. It was all training. It was not an abrupt appearance of the oil that presently pours. Through agony, it was crushed out of you. Prayer and tenacity. The ascension of the chosen one starts when heaven relinquishes control over you, not when the world acknowledges you. And now is the time. Chapter 8, verse 37 of the book of Romans serves as a reminder. Because of him who loved us, we are more than victorious in all of our endeavors. This is the DNA of the chosen one. You'll notice that it states, in all these things, not after the storm passes, not when the battle ends, but in the very middle of the chaos, you rise. You don't hold out for triumph. You enter the battle with triumph. Consider Esther, who spent years locked away in the palace. Nobody anticipated that the crown she wore would eventually save her people. Luxury was not the reason for her ascent. It has to do with intercession. Her crown wasn't meant to be seen. It was for combat. And then it was her turn. She didn't back down. She got up. You now wear the same crown, made of fire and calling, not gold and gems. Darkness is aware that it has lost ground when you wear it. Crowns, however, are heavy. They put a lot of pressure on the head. They serve as a reminder that authority is for service, not for pleasure. Like a flame raised high in the darkness, you are rising not just for yourself, but also for others who will find hope in you. Your life will light the way for others who are lost in the dark. Now, take a time to think. Think about how you receive this message. Imagine it as a table laden with freshly baked bread from paradise. For you, the bread was cooked. However, bread is only nourishing when it is shared. Here is where your little deeds count. Let them breathe a bit more if these words have made you feel better. You may just push in the same manner that you silently nod when a truth sinks into your heart. You may share this with someone you know who is still looking for light in their darkness, just as you would if you were passing along a freshly lit candle. You may sign up if you want to continue on this path together. If you were to leave a lamp outside your door, you would always be prepared for the next light to come on. If you are ever moved, you may contribute without feeling obligated to do so. It's like putting a little oil into a lamp so that its flame might continue to guide others, no matter how big or tiny. It becomes a part of the light that affects people you may never meet. Additionally, your presence, prayers, and involvement are gifts in and of themselves, even if you are unable to make a monetary contribution. Every remark, every utterance of amen, and every heart that really listens are jewels in heaven's eyes, selected ones. Your ascent is no longer secret. Even if you can still feel invisible, the invisible world already acknowledges your power. Demons are aware of your name. Your steps are guarded by angels. Standing tall in the identity you previously attempted to conceal makes heaven smile. You've changed since you faltered through silence and tears. Standing strong, you are the one with the crown. You were entrusted with something that you did not earn. As you ascend, you serve as a reminder to others that their own crowns are only waiting to be seized. Thus, raise your head and erect your shoulders. Be a selected person, not out of pride, but with a purpose. Your ascent is for a purpose, not for praise. The purpose of your crown is control, not ornamentation. Heaven already knows what the earth does not, but it will soon. You won't keep your brightness buried. Your crown won't go unnoticed. Your ascent has started, and in the dark, nothing can stop it. And as you climb, you do so for others who follow you, as well as for yourself. Their bravery is derived from yours. Their evidence is your win. Their reminder that heaven still selects regular people for amazing reasons is your crown. The adversary made a concerted effort to stop you because your ascent breaks chains that extend much beyond your own existence. You now have the mantle of power. It is neither a crown of worldly treasure nor a title bestowed by mankind. It is heaven's unseen garment. God's chosen vessels bear the burden of authority and duty. Despite being quiet, this mantle has a bigger voice than any emblem on earth. It changes the atmosphere. It spreads the aroma of paradise to the world's most remote regions. The invisible world already knows, even if you don't feel any different. Angels are aware of it. It makes demons shiver, as well as those who don't comprehend. You can feel it as soon as you enter the space. Position has nothing to do with that mantle. It has to do with authorization. Heaven now permits you to proclaim with confidence, to pray boldly, and to speak with authority. Imagine Elijah handing Elisha his mantle. For the naked eye, it was simply a piece of fabric. On a spiritual level, however, it was the sharing of authority, vision, and purpose. He was no longer a student when Elisha took it up. He became into a prophet who could summon marvels and split rivers. That is a mantle's nature. Ordinary becomes spectacular as a result. The scripture says in the book of James, chapter 5, verse 16, "The prayer of a righteous person is powerful and effective." This is the authority you now carry. Your prayers are no longer whispers lost in the wind. They are arrows, sharp and precise, striking exactly where they are sent. Your words are no longer empty sound. They carry weight backed by heaven's authority. But here is the truth. A mantle is not only about power. It is also about humility. Authority without surrender becomes arrogance. That is why every chosen one must remember the mantle rests not on those who boast, but on those who bow. The greatest authority flows through the deepest surrender. Moses discovered this. Though he carried the authority to stretch his staff and part seas, he also carried the humility to fall on his face before God. His mantle was not in his staff. It was in his surrender. The staff was only wood. His obedience made a weapon. And so it is with you. The mantle is not just what rests on your shoulders. It is what flows from your spirit. When you pray, chains break. When you speak truth, lies crumble. When you show love, darkness loses ground. Your authority is not in what you own, but in who you carry within you. Imagine walking into a courtroom where every voice shouts against you. The noise is overwhelming, accusations fly, and the weight of judgment feels heavy. Then suddenly the judge himself stands, silences the room, and declares, "This one speaks with my authority." The mantle is just that, heaven's acknowledgement of your calling in public. This explains why you have encountered so much opposition. Fighting those who are not a danger is not a waste of dark energy. The conflicts you faced weren't arbitrary. They were an effort by hell to remove the mantle before you could put it on. However, since men never took the mantle, all attacks failed. It was God's choice. This cloak also has a purpose. The right to remain quiet is not granted. Acting is required. Be brave when you pray. Speak with conviction when you do. Know that you have the support of heaven when you enter areas where others are afraid to go. This cloak is your shield, your tool, and your task. Imagine a shepherd with a stick. To the sheep, it represents direction, protection, and guidance. But to others, it seems to be a stick. Human eyes won't always find your mantle remarkable. However, it is safety and hope for those who are influenced by you. Don't hate it. Don't back down from it. Being in charge doesn't imply you have to yell or control others. It indicates that you move with the serene assurance that you have received approval from above. And when you have the support of heaven, no one can stop you. Wear the mantle with pride. Be brave and humble at the same time. Recognize that while you're entrusted with it, You did not earn it. You will discover that it is not a burden as you walk under its weight. It's a privilege. Selected one. God has faith in you, as seen by your mantle. You are loyal, not because you are perfect, but because you are willing, not because you are perfect. And the secret to gaining influence in your life is that willingness. You are more than simply a person who has survived a struggle. For the next conflicts, you are a bearer of authority. And by carrying this legacy, you will not only persevere, but also guide others to success. You are validated by prophetic signs. They are neither coincidences nor accidents. But to let you know that you are not forgotten, heaven's fingerprints were left all over your journey. You may have previously encountered some of these indicators. Numbers that keep coming up in strange locations. Dreams that seem more real than reality. Experiences that evoked a strong emotional response in you. These are not arbitrary events. They serve as affirmations of your identity. They may be referred to be coincidences by the outside world, but the selected see them as language. God uses language that appeals to the heart rather than reason. A passage in the Bible that appears to have been written just for you. An overheard exchange that provides the answer to the prayer you never spoke out loud. You know it can't be man because of how precisely the events are timed. It has to be God. In his second letter to the Corinthians, the apostle reminds us. Verse 1 of chapter 13. 2 or 3 witnesses must testify in order for any issue to be proven. End of profoundly. Those witnesses are prophetic signals. They keep repeating themselves till you listen. They reverberate through text, many voices, and the very fabric of existence. They show up till your heart tells you that this isn't a dream. This is proof. Consider Gideon. Not sure what he was meant to do. He presented God with a fleece. The earth was dry one night, although it was damp with dew. The ground was moist the next night, but the fleece was dry. These indications were meant to reinforce faith, not to foster it. Gideon had already been selected. The signs just validated the decision made by heaven. It's the same with you. Is this really my path? Am I truly called? You may have asked yourself before the signals started to show themselves. At the perfect time, a scriptural passage was read. A dream that mirrored what was already rising in your heart, and words from a stranger that wounded your soul. Imagine traveling at night with lamps placed along the route. These are heaven's soft methods of saying, yes, it's you. I have marked you. They all shine just enough to let you know that you are still headed in the correct direction. Prophetic signals are just that. Heaven-lit lanterns to reassure you that you're following the right path without giving away the whole route. And this is something strong. You are more than just a sign receiver. For others, you are a sign. It's an indication that you survived. Your fortitude is an indication. A prophetic evidence that God's hand is upon you is the fact that, despite all you have been through, you are still alive, breathing, and believing. Others around you may see it before you do. They see strength in your quiet, wisdom in your words, and serenity in your presence. Even though they may not be able to express it verbally, what they're going through is the prophetic mark on your life. I urge you to take a leap of faith now. Enter the number 944 in the comments section. Why 944? Since 44 refers to a selected foundation and twofold solidity, and 9 stand for completeness. Declaring 944 means that my foundation is firm and that I stand fully in what God started. It's more than simply a figure. The key is prophetic, using the signals that heaven has positioned all around you to mark your agreement. You're leaving more than just numbers behind when you input it. You are accepting the affirmations that heaven has been patiently repeating in your life by announcing, I see it. I accept it. I align with it. Selected one. Listen to the language of prophecy. Your narrative has been written by heaven. The murmurs should not be dismissed. Don't refer to what is really providence as chance. Signs aren't meant to amuse you. They're provided to fortify you. You now understand that the indications that keep coming your way are evidence that destiny has already located you. Know this. The language of certainty from above is prophetic indications. When uncertainty begins to seep in, they are God's soothing hand resting on your shoulder. They serve as reminders that you are following a well-planned route rather than aimlessly straying. The warning signals might sometimes be loud, waking you up like a dream. Sometimes they are silent, like a word you hear in passing and it breaks your heart. The weight of each is equal. Therefore, when you heed these indications by observing them and reacting to them, you are demonstrating to heaven that you are paying attention. They are God's way of saying, you are still on course. I have not forgotten you. And greater insight is provided when heaven finds a listener. The accuracy of prophetic confirmation increases. Your steps get bolder and your visions clearer. Selected one. The signage serve as guides rather than just markers. And there will be more if you continue to observe. You are the one who has been called to spiritual combat, whether you request it. You were born into a conflict that is bigger than you can imagine. It is a conflict between principalities, forces, and evil rulers in invisible realms rather than between people and blood. You are a soldier in this heavenly battle, as shown by the fact that resistance has characterized your existence. Even though you don't have a steel sword, you are armed with far more potent weaponry. No sword can compare to the sharpness of your prayer. More powerful than earthquakes, your adoration trembles foundations. You can create walls taller than stone with your faith. Anti-A areas change when you open your lips in accordance with heaven. Archaic terms that are mentioned in the book of Ephesians. Declare in chapter 6, verse 12. We fight against the rulers, the authorities, the powers of this wicked world, and the spiritual forces of evil in the higher realms, not against people and things. Hint, everything is changed by this fact. It implies that the conflicts, betrayals, and disappointments you experienced were more than simply human behavior. They were terrible tactics meant to shatter your soul. Nevertheless, you are still standing here because your soul carried divine fire, not because you battled with human might. Prior to Goliath, consider David. It seemed to the spectators like a slinged youngster confronting an armored warrior. In the spirit, however, it was light against darkness. Fear is facing faith. Covenant versus revolt. The stone was not David's weapon. It was the agreement he made with God. And simple sling was transformed into a weapon of mass triumph by that covenant. The same is true for you. Your weapons can seem basic. Songs sung in the night, words muttered in prayer. Over your house, the scriptures were proclaimed. However, they are nuclear in nature, disarming the adversary and demolishing strongholds. Your life has seemed like a never-ending fight for a reason. Comfort does not come naturally to warriors. They are created through conflict. Training put you under strain. You are being shaped into a soldier that heaven can trust by the hardships that attempted to shatter you. Consider a soldier at a training facility. He is put to the test every day with heavy burdens, protracted marches, and restless nights. It seems unjust and cruel. But when the day of battle arrives, he understands that every adversity has equipped him to endure while others perish. In other words, you prepare for the actual conflict by training through hardship. But you have to be aware of this. Spiritual combat is not a never-ending tumult. It has a purpose. You make progress each time you reject temptation. You fortify barriers of protection each time you pray while you're exhausted. You mute the falsehoods of the adversary each time you worship rather than fret. Every action, no matter how little, is a component of a battle plan that is being carried out in your life. Think about Paul and Silas incarcerated. Their souls were free, but their bodies were shackled. The earth trembled, and the jail doors flew wide as they prayed and sang songs. Chains dropped from each prisoner in the room, not only from their wrists. Their devotion went beyond mere survival. War was the liberation of prisoners. The realm you enter is this one. You're not the only person you pray for. Others' bonds are broken by your statements as well. Your loyalty frees more people than you can count, which is why the adversary has battled you so fiercely. Imagine yourself leading a lengthy relay as a torchbearer. Prophets, apostles, martyrs, and intercessors rushed before you, passing on the fire you bear through centuries of faith. Heaven has decreed that the flame will not go out in your hands, despite the enemy's best efforts to put it out. You were made to run with fire, to illuminate the way for others who follow you, to chase darkness out of valleys that others are afraid to go into. It is not a glamorous summons to spiritual combat. A lot of people misunderstand, and it often seems lonely. However, heaven observes, records, and rewards. And those who battled in quiet will be the most brilliant after the war. Therefore, don't hate the conflict. The nights you struggled in prayer should not be cursed. Even if you were exhausted, you got up in the mornings. Your spirit became stronger with each combat. Triumph. Push back darkness a little more, no matter how tiny. You are doing more than simply surviving conflicts. You're changing your territory. The realm of light grows each time you stand. Each time you don't bow. Darkness's kings shudder. Selected one. The call to fight has come to you. Victory is already written, even if the battle is still ongoing. The conflict is genuine. However, the end is safe. A soldier is not all you are. You are not only a victor. The change of glory is not a minor one. It's a wonderful transaction. Heaven is getting ready to repair what was taken, what was denied, and what was damaged in your past. Double measure, not simply equally. The balance is already shifting in your favor in the invisible world, even if you can't see it yet. Weight is glory. It is more than simply brightness or beauty. It has substance. There is proof when God's brightness enters your life. What guilt attempted to destroy, it restores. What loss attempted to bury is lifted. Where shame once humiliated, it now crowns. Going back to where you were before suffering is not the goal of the transfer of glory. The goal is to go much beyond it. The prophet Joel said in chapter 2, verse 25, that I will give you back the years that the locust has consumed. Good day. You'll notice that it refers to years, not just moments or opportunities, but whole seasons that were lost to suffering, squandered by uncertainty, and robbed by resistance. God doesn't just swap things out. Time is saved by him. He restores what you believed was lost forever. Consider Job, devastation, loss of fortune, loss of health, and loss of family were all hallmarks of his narrative. In the end, however, the record records that he got twice as much as was stolen, twice as many cattle, twice as much glory, and twice as much inheritance. Everything was impacted by the adversary. However, all was restored and more by God. Instead of ending in ashes, Job's narrative ended with plenty. That's the glory transfer. You have also gone through times when it seemed like everything was being taken away. Relationships broke down. The resources ran out. Opportunities were lost. However, what seemed to be the end was really the restoration preparation. Harvest replaces your season of barrenness, just as winter gives way to spring. Consider a tree that was toppled from the outside during a storm. It seems lifeless, irreparably shattered, yet hidden under the ground. Living roots are consuming water thoroughly. Stronger than ever, fresh shoots eventually emerged. That's the glory transfer. What seemed to be the finish becomes the start of something bigger. It is not necessarily a tangible transfer. Internal repair may sometimes be the most effective. Where tension once reigned, peace returns.